And I am very happy to be moderating this session this morning about trade and production, whether we should start with trade and lead to production or vice versa. So just a brief introduction before I introduce our panelists this morning. In 2026, global trade growth stands below pre-pandemic levels. So that's a concern. We have a lot of industrial investment in the global north. And the question of building capacities in the global south is more important than ever with all the changes that we've seen in the past couple of months and years in the supply chains. In the south, in the global south, 80% of African exports remain raw materials. Manufactured goods account for less than 15% of exports. And intra-African trade is stuck at only 15%, compared to, for instance, in Europe, 70%. Meanwhile, in China, the country holds 30% of global manufacturing output, and just 10 countries capture nearly 70% of global manufacturing value added. The central question before us is, does trade lead to production, or must production come first to enable strategic trade? Today on our panel, we have representatives from the Gulf, from holding companies to SMEs, 4 leaders, and 1 question. So let's debate. Briefly, I'll introduce each of the panelists before we go to 1 round of questions, and after that, we will leave the floor for cross-debate among our panelists and questions with the audience if you have any. So first, we have Mr. Ghassan Awad, Chancellor, Professor at the University of Abu Dhabi from the Emirates. We have Mr. Abdou Souley Diop, Managing Partner at Mazars. Welcome. We have Mr. Anwar Alawi Ismaili, General Manager at Maroc PME. Welcome. And we have James Fierro, who is the founder and the CEO of Eco Capacity Exchange based in London. So without further ado, my first question will go to Mr. Awad from the Emirates. We all know that the UAE has diversified from oil into logistics and advanced manufacturing over the past decades. My question to you, what role do universities and learning institutions and skills training play in moving a country from trade dependency to production-led growth? Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Claire, and thank you for the kind invitation. I want to mention a few things first about, to put things in context before I talk about the UAE and role of universities. We are living in a crazy world, and the debate about from trade to production or production to trade, it has become almost irrelevant, and this is reality because nobody now can predict what could happen next after COVID and wars and climate change and AI. We don't know whether AI could destroy humanities or humanities can defend itself and fight the AI, because there's a very big debate about AI versus humanities. Of course, the whole issue is about capacity, about skills, about investment, and you cannot go and get involved in production in everything, and you cannot do trades in everything, and this is reality. But let's look at the UAE as a great success story. Imagine 70, 80 years ago, there was only desert, and now it's heaven. It's absolutely an amazing country. But they started from a trade angle because they were trading pearls and textile, and this has given them the mindset of being good traders. But of course, in recent years, they move more into production, as you mentioned there as well. I mean, the non-oil products now is about 70% of the economy. And we know from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the President of the UAE, he said at some stage we won't be able to export a single barrel of oil. And that's why they built the knowledge economy. They want to be a knowledge-based society, and this is what they are doing. And that's why the universities are playing a major role in the area, at least of skills development, capacity building. And I was talking to my friend James about capacity building, and it's all about capacity. But you can see where the investment in the UAE, we know where they are. We know they are investing heavily in AI, and they want to produce products related to AI. They are investing in energy-related product, health-related, pharmaceutical, and so on. So the universities, being government or private universities, are playing a major role in training the workforce in order to be involved in the production of some of these products. Of course, it will help the trade, but it's important from a sustainability point of view. You know Khalil Gibran, the Lebanese American philosopher and writer, in his book about the Prophet, it's called The Prophet, he says, pity the nation that has many religious sects but no religion. Pity the nation that eats from something it doesn't harvest. So imagine, if you have good potato, why do you need to import potato from outside? And this was clear. So the UAE philosophy is all about producing product, becoming really sustained internally, and of course they look at trade as well. So for them, the philosophy of from production to trade or trade to production has become really irrelevant. It's all about capacity building, choosing the sectors where they can excel, they can become sustained, but they can export as well. Of course, they need to import certain materials and ingredients, but the conflict in the Middle East has affected maybe the business model, but it will be over soon, inshallah. It will be back to normal, and everybody, I think, across the globe will learn from this great nation who have done extremely well, even during very difficult conditions.
Thank you very much. Let's move to Mr. Abdou Diop. Governments face a dilemma, the question of regulating better or letting markets self-organize. From your perspective as a finance specialist, Mr. Diop, would you say that from your work with multinationals and local firms across the continent, Africa, which approach actually builds durable production capacity? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, and thank you for Institute Amadeus for the invitation. I think it's a very important topic. And when it comes to regulation, yes, clearly, today we have, when you look at the landscape of the continent, different views on that. When you look at the English-speaking countries, usually you see that the regulator let the market do and then come in, and that's what's happened in the fintech area, where we see a lot of evolution in the English-speaking Africa, because the regulation has let the market start and evolve and then brought regulation, instead of doing what is happening in the French-speaking countries, where the regulation want to establish the framework before letting people act. And we had done at the CGM level, which is the General Confederation of Moroccan Enterprises, a study last year that showed that more than 70% of the important Kenyan startup would have been not authorized in Morocco because of the regulation. So yeah, clearly today one of the big issue we have is that things are moving fast, the economies are moving fast. We cannot regulate something we don't know yet. So if we want to foster innovation, if we want things to move faster and Africa to be at the front edge of innovation, we need to let the market speak and then try to see how to regulate it. But if we want absolutely to regulate something we don't know yet, to let it happen, it would never happen. So to answer directly to your question, do regulation must come first or let the market play? I think for me, we need to be flexible and let the market evolve specifically on innovation and then regulate. But when it comes to trade and production, the topic is a little bit different because you need to create a good framework that allows investors to come in. So in that area, regulation can play a very good role because it helps to bring in investors, it helps to bring in industries that perhaps need a specific framework that allow them to be in. So the question is very important, but it depends on what point of view you are. When you are in an evolutive, technological, and innovative point of view, regulation must be the one who follows the market because you don't know how the market will evolve. You cannot, at this stage, have a view on what is happening. So you need to see how it's moving and then try to adapt your regulation to be sure that you capture everything. But otherwise, if it's on traditional investment and production, we need to have a framework. So that's my answer to your question.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ismaili, we would love to hear your perspective from the SME front in Morocco. And I mean, based on your experience with SMEs and small enterprises in the country, what would you say has been more important to Morocco? Has it been focusing on trade first or production? What's your position on this?
Merci beaucoup pour l'invitation. En fait, je voudrais attirer l'attention que le Maroc, pendant quelques années, a apporté une réponse claire, éclairante sur ce sujet et sur ce débat binôme production, capacité commerciale. Je rappelle qu'on a pris un débat fondamental, on a pris le choix délibéré de pouvoir développer simultanément nos capacités productives et en parallèle aussi nos capacités commerciales. Donc, alimenter nos bases productives et renforcer notre base commerciale. Je rappelle que pendant des décennies, le Maroc a fait le choix, jadis, ce fut un temps, de renforcer et de libéraliser sa politique de commercialisation au détriment de sa capacité productive. Et donc on est arrivé à une conclusion qu'on a peut-être fait le mauvais choix il y a une décennie parce que nous étions dépendants de notre capacité commerciale et des flux commerciaux. Et donc depuis quelque temps, et les exemples sont multiples, le fait de les aborder simultanément à travers une base productive qui est importante et qui est portée par un tissu de PME, PMI structurées, résilientes, innovantes et portées par des structures de PME qui ont la capacité à la fois de produire, mais aussi qui ont la capacité d'aller chercher des marchés au niveau national, d'accéder au marché international, a fait que nous avons mis en place une politique qui marie entre les deux et qui fait que nous mettons en place une base productive importante, mais aussi nous allons chercher des accès à des marchés importants nationaux et internationaux. Et donc pour ce faire, l'État a accompagné à travers plusieurs dispositifs ces PME nationales qui ont eu cette ambition ou d'augmenter sa base productive ou d'aller chercher des parts de marché soit nationales, soit internationales, surtout avec ce qu'a connu le monde et les PME depuis la crise Covid-19 passant par la guerre Ukraine-Russie, passant aussi par le phénomène d'inflation, arriver à cette réalité amère de ce qui se passe au Moyen-Orient. Et donc, les PME marocaines, les plus résilientes, qui ont eu la capacité d'être confrontées à ces problématiques-là, ont pu quand même résister face à ces fléaux et pouvoir assurer encore de la production, mais pouvoir aussi gérer ces flux commerciaux. Et donc, pour revenir à l'agence que j'ai le privilège et l'honneur de diriger, qui a mis en place il y a quelques jours dans cette même salle le lancement officiel des nouveaux dispositifs d'accompagnement qu'on a intitulé le Pacte des PME, qui a pour objectif effectivement de pouvoir en même temps accompagner toutes les PME qui ont l'ambition d'augmenter la base productive, mais aussi des PME qui ont l'ambition de pouvoir aller chercher des accès aux marchés nationaux, voire même à l'international, en mettant en place des programmes d'assistance technique qui vont accompagner les deux composantes et qui vont faire de nos PME des PME résilientes, des PME innovantes surtout, puisque ce que nous impose aussi ces réalités nous dicte une nécessité aujourd'hui d'innover sur notre façon de faire, d'innover sur nos process de productivité, d'innover sur nos façons d'accéder au marché. Et donc tout ça nécessite une assistance technique. Et soucieux de ce sujet et aussi capitalisant sur l'expérience, Maroc PME a pu mettre en place des dispositifs d'accompagnement pour ces sujets-là et qui vont permettre effectivement à ces PME de se faire et d'aller, j'ai envie de dire, d'aller préserver ce binôme production-capacité commerciale.
Merci beaucoup. So, one common thread from all your interventions seems to be the infrastructure, and that's a great segue for our next speaker, Mr. James Fierro. I wanted to ask you about your perspective, being in the field for so many years, working on these issues of a common good infrastructure, and what is, according to you, one good policy or instrument or mechanism that can be put in place across countries? Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, and very nice to be part of this gathering on growth and rethinking structures and what needs to be done to drive growth in Africa. I've spent 3 decades having founded one of the early internet unicorn companies. I've had the luxury of time, and I've spent 3 decades looking at and trying to tackle a problem that is consistently emerging over and over again, crisis through crisis through crisis. And you know, the latest crisis with the Iran war is just yet another manifestation of this underlying problem that comes back to production and trade. And it's a problem of the way the global monetary system has evolved over the last few hundred years. And it's an interesting thing that people are not really looking at. All the efforts are focused on the symptoms of this root problem of what has happened to money and how it has evolved and changed in its character from what it was invented for. Because if you go back in history, money just served as a medium to facilitate exchange, where people were producing and wanted to trade with other people. The only way to do that, unless you want to try and do a barter transaction, where you have the double coincidence of wants difficulty, that someone has to have what you want, you have to have what they want in the right quantity at the right time, this is difficult to achieve. So the real solution to this was first just marketplaces, souks and bazaars, and we'd bring all our goods and we would do multi-party trades. But in fact, the real solution was the invention of money. And money came into existence really only having two characteristics. It was a unit of account and a medium of exchange. That's what money's function was. It was things like shells and tally sticks. It changed its character when the rulers and the lords and the kings started to get control of these concepts of money. When you received shells for payment of your sheep that you sold, you immediately wanted to go and get something for those shells. But when it became gold and silver and took on the third characteristic of value, it changed everything. Because now when you receive a bag of gold, the immediate thing you want to do is hide it, hoard it, save it, put it with the goldsmith who would then issue it. And if any of you are from the Islamic world, you will know, and it's not just in the Quran, but in most religions, what happened to money when it would be put with the goldsmiths is they realized, wow, people would pay us for this, and we will lend it, and we will charge interest, and we will do forwards, and we'll do derivatives. This is the underlying problem that sits below all of these questions around production, around trade, around the SDGs not getting funded, around climate, around development, poverty alleviation. It's all about money, but in fact, the problem is money itself. And so the diagnosis is that money has corrupted its functionality. It's no longer doing what it was invented for. It's become an instrument of making money from money in so many different ways that this is, as I say, at the heart of the problem. And so if you go back and look even more, dissect this, you just look at Africa. Africa has nothing but abundance. It is abundant in capacity. Well, capacity used to be the money of the world. Yet Africa doesn't have the money. It has immense debt, and every time there's a financial crisis and the US dollar comes under strain, liquidity dries up, Africa is still sitting with abundance of capacity. And so what needs to be done is a complete rethink of the economic architecture, where we go back to money is in fact the real assets of the world, not money, which is, I mean, I'll just give you one little stat point. It's fascinating. There's $1,800 trillion a year in monetary transactions around the globe. 1,800 trillion. I mean, this is a big, big, big number. You know how much of it is real trade, real economy transactions? Less than 15%. It's astonishing. It's all money just trading for money. And if you are a pension fund manager or an asset manager sitting on money in a foreign country, determining where you're going to make your FDI investments, you are going to make that decision based on usually one thing, risk-adjusted return. And therein lies a massive problem. And it's so money is all about making money from money. And that is the underlying problem. And so we need to rethink the architecture. And this is what, you know, the work I've been doing. The first decade was just that discovery. The last 2 decades have been trying to figure out what the solution is. So that's, I'll leave that with you.
Thank you so much for this very thoughtful intervention. I want to give the floor to our panelists. Maybe Mr. Diop, I saw you nodding a few times.
Yeah. I wanted to react on the topic between production and trade also, because often we try to put them on a position. I think it's a matter of vision and what you do. Yes, clearly today we cannot afford to continue to export from Africa raw materials, so we need to move to production. But on the other side, you must be competitive. So how to move to production, being competitive. So we need to address many factors. But one of the important points today is how you connect the dots across Africa to put in place complementarity value chains to be sure that you have a captive market, you create more value in what you produce in Africa. Today, we have many of the, I would say, the African lines that are connected to the global value chain. So you can leverage on them and build real industries in Africa through complementarity value chain. Today, we are talking about the textile industry, where you have countries like Morocco, Egypt, today Benin, Madagascar, who are working well, trying to see how to leverage on the cotton in Africa to create fabrics. So you need to create value chain. And it's not only textile. You have the case in agribusiness, you have the case in automotive sector, where we are not leveraging enough on the bauxite in Ghana, Guinea, on the rubber in Côte d'Ivoire to complement the value chain in Morocco, Egypt, or some different countries. So that's a very important topic we need to address to be sure that we are working together across Africa to create complementary value chain to reinforce the competitivity of our industries and also to reinforce the part of made in Africa in the global value chains. That's the first point. The second point, when it comes to imports, trade through imports to create local capacities. When you look at how some of the Asian countries have built their industry, they started by trade, importing things, pushing progressively these international producers to have parts of their local fabrics in the country, and then learning the knowledge and becoming themselves producer. When you look at today, a big brand of automotive like Proton in Malaysia, they started by importing cars. Today they are producer because they did it step by step, importing, creating local industries. And you have the same in the aeronautic industry in Asia, where Asia imported first planes and then started to push the big producers to produce locally. So it's not an opposition, it's a matter of vision and strategy. The most important is what you put in your vision to become yourself a producer. If there is no vision, you will continue to trade, export your raw material, import finished products, and that's it. So it's not a matter of opposition, it's more a matter of vision and how you make your economy competitive, and in your vision, how you leverage on trade to build your own production capacity. So that's what I wanted to add to the debate.
Thank you very much. Please, Mr. Al.
Yes. I want just to look at it from the producer's point of view. And the producers of the futures are the Generation Z of the universities. It's reality. They will be building the product, operating the production lines, and so on. And this generation has certain characteristics. It's different from the other generations in a way that they are digital natives, for sure. They can understand technology better than anybody else. They are entrepreneurial in their thinking, but when it comes to learning, they don't want to get a degree in 3 or 4 years' time, the way we did it. They want to make money and finish their degrees in 10 years' time and use micro-credential, accumulated credits. So those guys who are supposed to be the future engineers and future innovators, they are busy doing something else, making money. And this will affect, I think, production in general. In addition, this generation is suffering from mental health. 79% of Gen Z who are at university now, they are worried about mental health. And when you have mental health and you are worried about it, how can you be able to produce something really exciting? But still, the production, the ideas for production comes from universities, research, innovation, investment, and so on. The base is really, this is reality. And if we are not careful about that interface maybe between production and trade and support it properly, you will see both suffering at a world which is nobody knows what could happen next. This is reality. It's not the conflict in the Middle East, what James referred to, but there are many issues. As I mentioned before, climate change is affecting everyone, and our students are worried about it. So in a way that it may just put them off from doing something which can solve some of these issues. And when you look at really the world problems, in the world there are 2.2 billion people who don't have access to clean drinking water. 2.2 billion, 25% of the world population. 2.8 billion people don't go to school. 150 million refugees The majority are caused by floods and droughts, and some by conflict. So when you look at the global figures and you are worried about from production to trade or trade to production, it becomes so minute as a problem. The problem is solving these issues. The United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, none of them will be met by 2030, by 2050 even. Unfortunately, it's a disaster. So there are so many issues which can affect production, trade, etc. At the end of the day, it's all related to capacity, investment, skills development, and the framework for regulations, for sure. I want to mention one point about Morocco. Morocco is a great example of success, I must admit. I mean, the way they have moved into manufacturing and developing the infrastructure is just a role model, I must admit. Every time I come to Morocco, I see a lot of changes, yeah.
Thank you very much also for this very thoughtful intervention. Would our colleague from Morocco share his thoughts on what was said?
Oui, parfaitement. Parfaitement, et effectivement, ce changement ne vient pas de rien. Ce changement ne vient pas de rien. D'abord, au Maroc, il y a eu des politiques publiques avant-gardistes. Il y a eu une volonté. Il y a d'abord une volonté. Il y a eu des politiques publiques avant-gardistes. Et puis, il y a eu une ambition d'un tissu économique. C'est ce qui fait ce mix donne ce changement et ce développement rapide que connaît notre pays en se basant effectivement sur un dispositif académique agile et qui a la capacité effectivement aussi de se changer rapidement. Mais tout cela passe par la meilleure protection qui puisse exister, c'est la résilience de nos PME marocaines. Et quand on parle de la résilience, on ne parle pas que de la résilience des entreprises, mais il y a aussi la résilience des marchés et aussi celle des chaînes de valeur. Je rappelle juste que une entreprise aujourd'hui qui est passée par des chaînes de valeur et qui profite des chaînes de valeur défragmentées et qui n'a pas la capacité d'aller chercher des marchés, soit elle disparaît très rapidement, parce que c'est des chocs qu'elle ne peut pas supporter, soit elle choisit de se réinventer et de pouvoir rebondir sur tous les marchés. Et effectivement, pour ramener ça à notre action, notre nouveau pacte TPME apporte pour la première fois dans l'histoire du Maroc un programme qui traite de la résilience. Ce n'est pas mon ami Diop qui va me contredire, mais historiquement au Maroc, on accompagnait beaucoup plus la compétitivité, on accompagnait beaucoup plus la croissance, mais on n'a jamais mis en place des programmes qui prenaient en charge la partie résilience. Et donc, capitalisons sur tout ce qui se passe, sur une expertise avérée de cette agence, de ce qui se passe dans le monde entier. Et donc, nous avons mis en place deux dispositifs. Un qu'on a appelé dispositif restructuration. Et l'idée à travers ce dispositif, c'est de pouvoir accompagner toutes les entreprises en difficulté en amont, avant qu'ils commencent à disparaître, et de pouvoir mettre à leur disposition toute l'expertise nécessaire pour la mise en place des plans de retournement et de redéploiement. Et aussi, on va les accompagner sur toute la partie restructuration financière. Cette expertise pointue nécessite des moyens. Une PME qui est déjà en difficulté, qui n'est pas résiliente et qui voudrait effectivement se réinventer, n'a pas forcément les moyens, surtout financiers, nécessaires, ensuite des moyens techniques. Et donc, à travers ces dispositifs, l'État qui accompagne cette volonté pourra prendre en charge jusqu'à 90% des frais d'assistance technique, ce qui va permettre effectivement à cet État, qui ne va pas se substituer au marché, mais qui va quand même être aux côtés de ces PME marocaines pour pouvoir assurer le développement dont a parlé mon collègue. Un deuxième dispositif qu'on a mis en place et qui va accompagner aussi cet aspect de résilience, je ne vous apprends rien du tout, nous sommes un tissu économique composé majoritairement, 95% c'est des PME à caractère familial. Et donc la notion qu'on a tendance toujours à omettre, c'est cet aspect de transmission. Nous sommes arrivés à une troisième génération de gestionnaires de ces entreprises qui n'ont pas forcément soit la volonté, soit la capacité, soit l'envie de continuer ce que faisait la première génération. Et donc, cet aspect de transmission constitue aussi une menace à la survie de nos entreprises. Et donc, conscient du danger de cet aspect-là, nous avons mis en place un nouveau dispositif qui va prendre en charge toute la partie assistance technique via une expertise pointue pour pouvoir permettre à ces entreprises soit d'assurer une transmission fluide, soit complètement d'assurer une cession et de céder ces PME pour qu'ils continuent à être fonctionnelles, résilientes. Et donc, nous avon choisi un message qui dit que la résilience, elle n'est pas défensive, elle est plutôt consistée à transformer les chocs en une capacité d'adaptation très rapide pour pouvoir jongler entre les différentes réalités que nous impose ce marché. Et puis, des entreprises résilientes, à côté de ça, il faut aussi des entreprises qui sont compétitives. Et pour être compétitive, il faut être une entreprise complètement digitalisée, décarbonée, qui respecte les normes qualité qui sont demandées soit pour les marchés nationaux ou internationaux. Et donc, à côté de ces dispositifs, on a mis en place des dispositifs complémentaires qui vont assurer cette compétitivité et qui vont permettre à nos PME de pouvoir effectivement épouser ces logiques que nous imposent les marchés nationaux et internationaux et pouvoir se faire. À côté de ça, il faut agir aussi sur les chaînes de valeur. Et donc, au niveau des écosystèmes, on a essayé de mettre en place, en partenariat avec les départements concernés, des écosystèmes qui sont complémentaires, qui vont pouvoir agir sur les chaînes de valeur dans des secteurs définis. Pour ne citer que l'exemple du programme PME Supply Chain sur toute la partie logistique, qui est une composante importante dans la vie des PME marocaines. Et pour finir, il faut aussi une politique draconienne, agressive, d'accès au marché national, mais surtout d'aller chercher des parts de marché international où aujourd'hui le potentiel est de 120 milliards de dollars. Et donc, à travers un dispositif qu'on a mis en place qui s'appelle Power Export, on va pouvoir accompagner nos PME marocaines pour pouvoir s'internationaliser, aller chercher des parts de marché à l'international pour ceux qui n'ont été jamais dans l'export, mais pour celles qui sont déjà exportatrices, d'aller accroître et développer leur potentiel à travers un accompagnement technique spécifique et des plans d'export qui sont complètement pris en charge par les pouvoirs publics, par l'État, en l'occurrence par Maroc PME, et qui va déployer le programme du secrétariat d'État au commerce extérieur qui vise effectivement à aller chercher ces parts de marché international. Et donc, oui, parfaitement d'accord avec mon ami intervenant.
Merci beaucoup pour cette présentation très détaillée de tout ce qui a été mis en place en termes d'instruments, de mécanismes. I want to give the floor to James to reflect, and I just want to be aware of time. We only have a few minutes left. Yes.
Okay, yeah. I want to connect a couple of different ideas. So Mr. Diop was talking about we need vision and so on, and of course we do. And I spent most of my life as a SME entrepreneur, and was very active in the Global Entrepreneur, YEO, and eventually became EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, which is the largest global entity of entrepreneurs. And of course, there's a very common theme, is that all entrepreneurs, all country leaders, all multinational leaders, they all have a vision. I mean, this is what, you know, any entrepreneur has a vision, they want to be there. The only difference is they're here. And the path of getting there always requires capital. And so capital is still missing. And it's part of why you don't get to go from resources to production to get more of the value chain. You still have to finance it. And the challenge is attracting that money. And so you see all of these, you know, trying to do better governance and legal structures and mitigate risk and so on, is catering to the existing world of finance. But that is the problem. Africa is in a really unique position. Africa has nothing but abundance, and therein lies the answer. The key is, how do you unlock that abundance of capacity, which is, there's no shortage of capacity. I mean, let me illustrate it in a very simple way. You look at the world today, it is abundant in capacity. There is not a shortage of capacity. Every company has unused capacity, every country has unused capacity, every unemployed person who's not working has unused capacity. The world is abundant in capacity. We know this. The world is also abundant in need. Africa needs everything. Every multinational is like going, wow, we want to sell to Africa. We just don't know how they're going to pay for everything we want to sell them. But yet they have this abundance of capacity, abundance of need. And remember what I was saying earlier, how we brought together need with capacity, abundance, was with money. And the world is not short of money. We have been printing it for 50 years at an unprecedented level. So there is not a shortage of money in the world. It's just that money has a new lease and life. It is all about making money from money. Yet the capacity exists and the need exists. What is needed is new economic architecture, the economic coordination of need and capacity in new ways that solves the fundamental problem that we face in the global financial system. And that is what, again, my work for 3 decades, the last 2 decades were about the solving of that issue. And I would only encourage everyone to be thinking about innovation in the ways to unlock real economy capacity as a new form of credit. And that is completely doable. And in the latest, iterations that's happening in the world of real world assets and all kinds of, blockchain brought a whole bunch of really good thinking about alternatives. Unfortunately, blockchain is not the answer, but these are the kinds of innovative pathways that need to be explored.
Okay, please go ahead. And then Mr. Watt.
Très rapidement, je voulais juste réagir parce que ce que dit mon ami est très important. C'est juste pour illustrer aujourd'hui effectivement tous ces défis d'accès au marché, d'accès au financement surtout, d'accès à la productivité. Elle nécessite, à mon sens, des politiques publiques draconiennes, des politiques publiques volontaristes, des politiques publiques qui vont pouvoir accompagner des tissus comme des PME marocaines, pour ne parler que de la réalité marocaine que je maîtrise. Peut-être les opportunités, elles sont là, il y en a beaucoup, mais le problème, c'est comment linker effectivement ces PME avec des marchés, comment pouvoir les accompagner pour pouvoir accéder à des financements qui peut-être existent, mais soit on n'a pas la capacité, soit on n'a pas la technicité, soit on est en méconnaissance déjà de leur existence, soit de pouvoir effectivement, avec des systèmes financiers qui sont ce qu'ils sont, très opaques, pouvoir accompagner ces PME pour essayer de rapprocher entre les exigences de ce marché financier aux demandes des PME. Et donc, sans politique publique qui sont volontaristes et qui sont de proximité, je pense qu'on va continuer en Afrique à pouvoir mettre le gap entre la productivité et les chaînes de valeur commerciales.
Thank you. Chancellor, you will have the mot de la fin. You will have the honor to do the mot de la fin.
Thank you. I want just to mention that we are almost assuming that we are living in a constant and well-known world. Nobody knows how the world would look like. Nobody knows how market would look like in 10, 15, 20 years' time. I think it's time to produce the scenarios using scenario planning, futurology, future techniques. May happen, it may not happen, but we have to assume that whatever we are discussing now will not be applied in 20 years' time, and this is reality. I think my lessons from the UAE during difficult times, maybe 4 or 5 messages. Resilience, you have mentioned it. When you are resilient, you can survive. When you are wise, when you have wisdom, you will survive for sure. Because in a country which has been attacked on a daily basis, they did not attack back. They say, well, we'll destroy our country, we'll protect it, not just defend it. The vision and the clear, very clear vision, and it's not a corrupted vision. So you may have a clear vision and you're corrupted. So you don't destroy your own country. So the clear vision with loyalty to the country will make sure that you will assume that you can do the production and trade the products because you have the right infrastructure, the right mindset, and the right vision.
Thank you so much. I want to thank our panelists today for this fascinating conversation. Please give them a round of applause. And the Institute, the Amadeus Institute, for organizing such interesting events. Thank you very much also to our audience today.